She wandered into the bush, soaking herself in tears as she cried up to the sky. She begged for a child. All of a sudden, a child came falling from the sky into her arms. She was so shocked and couldn't believe her eyes. Her husband asked whose child she was carrying. She said it was hers. He asked, "I don't understand. Can a woman get pregnant and have a baby under an hour?" She said no, that the gods had sent them a child from above. Once upon a time, in a distant land, there lived a lady named Nma for short. She lived with her husband, Dike, in a beautiful home. Nma is a very beautiful woman, just as her name describes. She was also very hardworking and contributed to the home. She was a loving woman who ensured that everyone around her was okay and doing all right. She had been married to her husband, Dike, for 5 years now, and they hadn't been fruitful. They had tried different medicines and herbs, but nothing ever seemed to work for them. Nma, right from when she was a little girl, had always envisioned herself in her own home with her loving family and children all around her. But that dream felt so far away. Nma's husband, who loved her so much, started displaying some form of character towards her. He became very verbally abusive, which hurt her feelings most times. Nma never failed to cry to her chi to help her send a baby, even if it was just one, as she felt she was losing her husband. Her mother-in-law was making things very difficult for her, as she was already threatening to bring in another woman into their home to do what she had failed to do. Nma's friends were also married, and whenever they were together, they would talk about their children, forgetting how their talk usually hurt her. But she bottled up her feelings and nodded like someone who understood what they were discussing, and would cry her eyes out, wondering why her case was different and why she hadn't been able to have children. One day, her husband informed her that his friends would be coming over. When they were entertained, one of the men, who saw how she was stressing herself, asked if she needed any help. But her husband responded saying, "What does she need help with? Is she doing anything other than cooking for herself? Give me children, not only going from one naming ceremony and child dedication to another. Let her do the work. That is the only thing she knows how to do best." His words pierced her deeply, and she couldn't hold herself anymore. She left the house in shame, even when her husband was trying to call her back. She refused to answer, and his friend told him that what he just did was very wrong and that he shouldn't talk to his woman in that manner, but he asked him to mind his business. She wandered into the bush, soaking herself in tears as she cried up to the sky. She begged for a child. All of a sudden, a child came falling from the sky into her arms. She was so shocked and couldn't believe her eyes. She looked around, but no one in sight. She felt the baby, who stared at her, and she smiled, saying, "I will love and protect you." Later on, she went back home, and her husband, who was very furious, waiting for her as she came in, he asked who the hell she thought she was to walk out on him and whose child she was carrying. She said it was hers. He asked, "I don't understand. Can a woman get pregnant and have a baby under an hour?" She said no, that the gods had sent them a child from above. He laughed hysterically and asked her again whose child it was, and she repeated the same thing. He then asked her to leave his house, saying he wouldn't be involved with a stolen child or anything like that. Are you that desperate that you have to steal someone's child? She said no, she did not, that the child fell into her arms from the sky. He told her to listen to herself, that she sounded crazy. Anyway, either you return the child or leave my house. He turned and went in. She was still in the sitting room looking at the child and trying to explain to her husband, but all her pleas and talks fell on deaf ears. Not long after, his mother got word of the news and single-handedly brought another woman for her son, and they both sent Nma away. Dike refused to fight for his wife. She picked up her belongings and the baby and left to find a place to call home. She found an abandoned hut, which she made into a livable state. She looked at the baby in her arms and named him Soma. She loved and doted on her son, given to her by the gods, and he grew up to be a handsome young boy who was strong and smart. His mother Nma never failed to let him feel like a special boy, and he knew it. One day, Soma came home crying to his mom, and when she asked him why he was crying, he said that the kids in his school called him a bastard. They asked if he knew who his father and mother were. His mother Nma waved it off and told him not to mind them. In due time, I will explain everything to you. A few days later, she got word that Dike had married another woman who was pregnant for him. She was saddened by the news, but did not want to let it weigh her down and cheered herself up. In no time, Soma became a big grown man and was very handsome too. One day, he was walking down the road and met an old man who told him to go to a particular shrine where he would find all the answers to the questions he had. He went home a bit puzzled and narrated his experience to his mom. She said, "I think it's time I give you a little history about yourself." She narrated her ordeal in the hands of her husband because she did not have a child, and how he fell into her palms one day. Since then, her husband had sent her away, saying she must return him or never come back. She said she couldn't dump him and so raised him as her own. He asked her why she never said anything earlier. She said, "I knew it wouldn't make any sense to you, so I decided to keep mute till the time was right." He told his mom that he would have to go to the shrine tomorrow and find out the solution to this mystery. He went to bed that night, thinking of what lay ahead of him. The next day, he bade his mom goodbye and set off on his mission to discover the mystery behind his birth. Soma got to the shrine and was welcomed. The old man said he had been waiting for him and would give him an answer to all the questions he had. He asked him to sit, and he began to narrate that on the night he was given to Nma, his mother, his parents, the king and queen of Abba village, were gruesomely murdered. He told him that when they were about to hurt him, the gods did not want it to happen and took him away. So he fell into the arms of Nma, a good and gentle woman who had done the gods no wrong. They gave you to her because they knew she would guide and protect you. Now you know the time to take your throne is now, away from that evil uncle of yours who orchestrated everything. I will tell you what to do to take back your throne. He gave him a necklace to wear and said it would protect and guide him always, that he need not fear, and to do just as he was asked. Soma thanked the man after listening to all he told him and went home. His mother Nma wanted to know the full outcome of it all, but he told her that when it was all over, he would explain everything. He packed his bags and bade his mom goodbye, saying he would see her soon. With a heavy heart, not wanting to lose her son, she bade him goodbye. After a month, Soma came back and told his mom to pack her bags because he had to take her somewhere. She asked where. He said, to his kingdom. She asked him if everything was alright, and he said yes, that when they got there, he would tell her everything she wanted to know. Nma packed her luggage, looking back at the hut she had made home, and with a sign took her bag and left with her son. When they arrived, the servant took his bag to his chambers and he introduced his mom to them. They quickly attended to her. Nma asked her son what was going on and he took her to her chambers. There, he sat down and narrated what had happened to him. He said that when he arrived at the palace about a month ago, he applied to be a servant. When his uncle saw him, he was taken aback and asked him many questions because of his uncanny resemblance to his late father. But he said he was from a different village. His uncle was uneasy because he wondered what had happened to the child they had tried to murder. No one had heard from the baby or knew what had happened to him. Soma kept working while studying the kingdom and plotting how to take over the throne. One night, the king called him to his chambers and asked him again who he was. He repeated to the king what he had said earlier. Not being convinced, the king had him locked up because he was scared that his past had come back to haunt him. The king kept looking for a way to eliminate him without causing a scandal, even considering charging him with treason. But Soma wasn't guilty of anything, and the cabinet members asked for his release to avoid damaging the king's reputation. They were suspicious because of the resemblance between Soma and their late king. The king reluctantly agreed to release Soma, giving him a stern look to watch his back. Soma, with the help of the gods, devised a plan to expose the king for who he was. One day, the king called on Soma, and Soma asked the king if his conscience has refused to rest since he killed his parents. The king's face changed, and he said, "You are my brother's son." Soma replied, "Yes, and you know I have come to take back what rightfully belongs to me." The king said, "Instead of that happening, I will kill you too, and you will join your miserable parents." Immediately, he called on his gods, but it was the chief priest and the cabinet members who, unbeknownst to him, had been listening to everything he said, that came in. The chief priest walked up to him and hit him with his staff, causing him to confess. He said he was meant to take after his father, but his father gave the crown to his younger brother, saying he would rule better. This made him so mad that he decided to strike when everyone least expected it. The night he killed his parents, just as he was about to kill Soma, the baby vanished before his eyes. They made it look like people from the next kingdom had killed the royal family and taken the baby as their prize, but no one believed the story. Everyone looked at the king in astonishment, and he was charged with treason and sentenced to death by hanging. A date was set for Soma to assume the throne, which would be happening tomorrow. "I did not want you to miss it, hence the hurry," Soma said. Nma was so happy and hugged him, saying, "I am happy you have found your root." They smiled and enjoyed the rest of the day. The following day, Soma was crowned king and his mother was crowned the queen mother. The people cheered and celebrated the new royal family. Days turned to weeks, and one day, the least expected person came to the palace. Nma's ex-husband, Dike. He came begging Nma to forgive him, admitting he had wronged her. Nma was very surprised and asked why he was coming to beg her. She had learned that he had married a new wife and had a child with her. He said the baby was never his and that he discovered he was impotent all along and he had been blaming her. She looked up and then looked at him, saying, "Well, I have forgiven you, but I am fine being alone with my son. You can leave." He couldn't say a word to the boy he once rejected and was filled with regret as he left the palace. Her son Soma consoled her, saying it was all right, that he would love and protect her. She need not fear. And truly, he kept his promise and ruled his great kingdom with his mother by his side. The end. The lesson to be learned from this story is never to treat your spouse badly, nor talk to her in an insultive way in the presence of your friends. Do not reject a gift given to you, as you don't know what it has in store for you. Know that patience is a virtue. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please click on the subscribe button to support us. Turn on the post notification to get notified when I upload a new story. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Till then, bye.